Opa, desculpa. Era para começar aqui. Boa tarde, gente. Uma alegria enorme estar aqui com
Good
vocês.
afternoon. It's a great pleasure to be here with you. I'm sorry for this little gap here. I should have started before, but I'm here. So I was late, but I'm present. I would like to thank for your attendance, each and every one of you. It's a great pleasure to be here, of course, and I would like to thank TNC for the invitation, and also to WRC with Andre and the Pacific Institute, that is helping us to promote this partnership with WRC, such an important partnership, so that we take care and have additional tools, say work done by TNC in Brazil and other organizations, but that can help us without question with tools to work collectively also with the basins in our Brazil. And we are here in New York. I believe most of those who are here on the screen, they are also in New York. And for the water conference, that for the last 43 years, it didn't happen. But this is especially important for a world in a climate crisis. As the professor says, in the world of climate change, the first victim is the water. So we know that the figures that have been shown here, and this is not my role, I am speaking too much, but the figures shown, they are really frightening. And when I always say, when I'm asked, is that these studies, usually they are conservative. And when we have the time for their deadline from 10 years ago, forecasting to 2023, they are wrong. They are wrong for more, because they are conservative. And this is the big concern that we have when we analyze 2030, 2050. So I would like to thank very much to talk this global compact in another agent in this scenario with all these experts in the topic water, so that we can have healthier basins and make companies to meet their role, because they have a very relevant role, not only in the negative impact that they cause, but also in providing water safety through an action that is more resilient, thinking about water. Thank you very much.
Obrigado, Carlo.
Thank you, Carlo. Thank you for this opening, for your participation. Good afternoon, everybody. I am Samuel Barreto. I would like to thank, on behalf of TNC, your participation. I am the manager, national manager of water and agriculture for TNC here in Brazil. And Carlo mentioned, it's a very important moment in this conference, the second conference only about water promoted by the UN after more than 43 years without a specific discussion about this agenda. So this is a very relevant topic in the world of climate change, in a world where these extremes are happening with more frequency, more intensity. So I would also like to thank the participation of the panelists that will bring here their topics with their presentations in the proposal of a collective agenda in a developing country, and being the case of São Paulo, focusing also the corporate sector, the water users, for strengthening this compact on the conservation recovery of our waters, of the water basin. So together here with us discussing, we will have Mariana Apple. She is the manager of sustainability for Latin America for Ambev. Alexander Rose, who is senior manager of the Global Compact here in Brazil, and André Ramalho, who is from Water Resilience Coalition. It's an honor to have you all here to promote this debate. To start, I would like to show you a brief presentation so that I can show exactly a context to introduce what we are talking about. Can you see my screen? I believe yes. So the collective engagement for improve security in countries in development for prioritary basins in the case of São Paulo. Little delay here in switching foils. Just to locate what we are talking about, we are talking about an action in the southeast region in Brazil on the state of São Paulo that includes a part of the state of Minas Gerais, including 3 water basins, the Haitiete Basin, the basins of the rivers, Piracicaba, Capivari, and Jundiaí, and part of the basin of the Paraíba do Sul River. This is a very important region. We are talking about a region where we find more than 27 million people. It represents more than 27% of the Brazilian GDP and more than 70% of the areas deforested. Good part of these areas are degraded grasslands. In 2014-2015, we saw the worst drought in the history of the state. And in the Cantareira system, one of the largest systems for water supply, it operated at that time with less than 5% of its capacity. I believe that you all remember when we talked about the dead volume. And it is a region that supplied almost 10 million inhabitants, and today supplies only 7.5 million. And something that happened after this drought period was a reduction of the consumption. We almost reached 15% considering or comparing the pre-crisis period, and today is around 10% of consumption. In addition to all these challenges, we will talk a little bit about the collective actions that start with the municipalities, their engagement, also the states, the governments, private initiatives, civil society, with an institutional arrangement, a landscape planning, considering the understanding of the function of the use of soil in the promotion of biodiversity, of the generations of ecosystemic services, and how all this part of landscape planning can help us to have a more productive area with greater conservation, and that bottom line can deliver more water safety. Also with a plan of analysis, monitoring a financial plan so that this framework, long-term framework of financing can happen, and also a legal framework to provide sustainability to all this initiative, so that it does not remain as an initiative only of a few people, but of public policies and management tools, and that can go on for a long time because we cannot implement it overnight. And for this, we cannot do this kind of action all by ourselves. Just to show, in the case of São Paulo, these are some of the partners in the public power, municipal power, water companies, basins committees, regulating agencies for water, multilateral or agencies, companies, and institutions with global action to putting together different sectors and different instances. Also here, this is what we're going to discuss during the panel, but just to show a little bit of the results. We are not talking only about an idea, but also an action plan that is going on, the results that were achieved in terms of areas that were recovered, restored, conserved under best practices, benefiting families that live in those areas where these actions are taking place, and also resources that are prioritized during this period. And here, just to show where we are focusing to reach the targets in 2030 on this point of view of conservation, restoration, best practices, but also of other benefits that this action of water security can bring in terms of mitigation of carbon, of rural sanitation, prioritizing resources, strengthen public policies, and people directly benefited with these initiatives. And so this is a very brief introduction so that we can bring here this context of the area we are talking about, a very complex area with a lot of people in a situation of water scarcity, and also a great opportunity for these actions and initiatives to promote exactly this water security. So since we are going through the decade of action, I would like to invite here Alexander so that he could start with the first reflections, considering that we are in the decade of action, to understand how a global compact in Brazil established its guideline, its actions for this corporate engagement in around the topic of water, even to what Carlos said in the beginning, because one of the objectives of this covenant is to bring the corporate sector to this agenda. Good afternoon, Alexander. Welcome. Good afternoon, Samuel, our colleague panelists, and all those attending this meeting. It's a great pleasure to be part of this panel in such an important week for water, and also be part in developing water security for Brazil. This phrase, the decade of action, was first mentioned by the Secretary of the United Nations, Mr. Antonio Guterres. We are arriving in this moment, and we have to place all efforts to actions. A global compact that comes to encourage the alignment of the practices of the business community to promote a sustainable development. In this sense, they reproduce these objectives concerning human rights, labor rights, environmental protection, and following all these principles, we have an action platform to promote the engagement of the companies, especially the Brazilian ones, and to have a positive collective impact, bringing potable drinking water and sanitation. And the actions and projects in the platform are aligned with the Water Mandate Platform and UN Dictator Ocean Sites, as well as the program SBG Ambition, promoted with a positive liquid impact of water for everyone, and 100% recovery of resources and all materials and products relating with water. In addition to this, we have the principles of human rights that are involved, especially the guideline for the activities, among which, in the case of water, environment, and sanitation, I would like to highlight 7 principles. And principle number 7, the companies should have a preventive approach to the environmental challenge. Principle 8, develop initiatives to promote greater environmental responsibility. And principle 9, encouraging development and disclosure of technologies that are environmental friendly. So the Comptech is very much focused on this to expedite, together with the companies, these targets, and each company have their own targets related to human rights, related to water, and we are exactly with the collective actions to push these targets and to meet these targets. Thank you, Alex. Very good, your introduction. Also reminding all those who are watching us is that on YouTube we have translation into English, so it's also being introduced to English, to English translation, sorry. This initiative that you mentioned, Alex, has an alignment, a development with a water mandate. So I would like here to invite André Ramalho, who is the coordinator of WRC Water Resilience Coalition, so that he can explain to us how the water mandate started, how it was that WRC started. We're going to speak a series of names and initiatives. So I would like you to explain to us how these points are being developed until it reached WRC, and what is the objective of this initiative. Good afternoon.
Yes, thank you, Samuel. Good afternoon. I'm very happy to be here, and it's very nice to talk about this topic and to get more people on board with this topic. I think this is an evolution, Samuel, and unfortunately, we all fortunately, we all can show very good results here in New York. We can see that there is a path for all, and or for all the agents, for citizens, but also for the companies in their operations. So the mandate, just to understand this, is the group of water impact in Brazil. That's the equivalent of the Global Compact. And this is this exists for more than 14 years. And the objective was to show the companies how to manage better the water resources, to take care of this topic that is so vital for their own production. And the goal was to create guidelines at a time where no one talked about this. This was concept that was not used. So this was a huge success. We were able to show this concept to the companies. And today, we can see that most of the small, middle-sized, and big companies and all the value chains think about water management, how they're using the water, how they can improve their processes to use better their water. So this was processes that was very successful. Of course, we have a lot to improve still, but we are on a very good path. And we are very happy that a lot of these companies are understanding that they're in a bigger context. They cannot look only at their own operations, but they're part of a water basin, and they're not the only users of this big water basin. And then the companies got in touch with Water Mandate, and they say, well, we need to work collectively because the problem is huge and we cannot solve it. And we need some help. We need an initiative that can put all together, showing solutions, developing solutions, good projects, and then to work together to get more partners on board, to scale up, because this is the only way to handle the problem of the water basins. No one's going to do this alone, not the government and not the companies, but we need to do this together. So the Water Resilience Coalition was born as an action-based solution. So we have some priority basins, and we think that a lot of companies want to do projects, and we have organizations as TNC that have already nice projects, and we are just connecting, we're just plugging the different actors together to make this project feasible. That's very quickly what we are doing. Perhaps I can talk more about this. So yes, and now we are going to talk about a company that uses water, that's Ambev. And I would like to introduce Mariana, to the sustainability manager of Ambev Latin America. Mariana, what can you say about the strategy of your company about the topic of water? How can this action plan and how did this strategy change the view outside the company? So what happened to do this? Because on a day-to-day basis, we see that the process has an evolution, commitments, but we still have the challenge to look outside the company. Can you tell us a little bit how this strategy was developed and what factor did this change? So good afternoon and welcome to our group. Yes, Good afternoon. I would like to thank you for the invitation. I'm very, very happy to be at this panel, and we all signed the Global Compact, and our group was the founder of these companies. And thanks also to Samuel and TNC for the 10-year partnership we have together. And I would like to say that this process inside our company was maturing processes. We are working for more than 25 years. We are trying to use best practices to reduce water consumption, and this work brought us the last 18 years a reduction of more than 55% on our consumption. But we are not all satisfied. We really have the goal up to 2025. That's a public goal, and we want to have 2.5 liters water for every liter of beverage. And when we look at our operation with a high water stress, we are going to get 2 liters. That is our commitment. But we have internal studies to improve and to get to 1.5. And some operations already are at this level. So we are doing this looking inside the company, and then we started to see, like Andres said, to look only inside the company would not solve the problems, because the water basins were deteriorating. We had less water available. The water quality wasn't good. We started perceiving the change, and then we said it's not enough. So we had operations in Brasilia, and we saw the deterioration of the river, and we started to work on this together with society. We wanted to work together with NGO, community work, and we wanted to improve the situation. And we distributed some kits to make the water analysis, so every citizen could analyze the water. So we worked a lot. We wanted to have a pilot project, but this was so successful, and we saw the transformation in the region. And now we really think we're going to do more, and we're going to work this in other contexts too. So in 2013, we started with a robust plan similar to what we're doing today. And we have this partnership of 10 years with TNC. And we are in 7 regions in Brazil, 11 regions in South America, with projects for conservation of water basins. We did do this collectively with a lot of partners. Perfect, Mariana. This we saw in the Brazilian national law that we have the committees. Here we have the decentralization. We can have the integration of a lot of discussions. And last year, this law was 25 years old. And we still have a challenge. We need a better participation of the water users. This topic I would like to mention in this aspect we're talking today. Andre, what do you think? What's the interest level? What's the participation? And also, what are the barriers for this bigger engagement of companies in this work, and not only about the participation of the companies in this engagement, but also we work, as we work here in São Paulo, nature-based solutions. We want to look at the conservation of our water reserves and the restoration of water basins. So these are peripheric solutions. But what's the interest level? How is the participation, and what challenges do you see in this engagement of the companies? Yes, of course, we had a lot of challenges, not only about the vision and the worries with the water resources, because big companies that use a lot of water, of course, they are worried, and they understand already that we need to do more than the own operations. Of course, in different maturity levels, Ambev is quite developed and very efficient in a lot of programs. Some companies are looking for new programs. So the wish to understand more about this has increased, and some of the companies are inviting small and middle-sized companies because sometimes they have not dedicated employee to work on this topic. But the big companies and the big organizations as a compact, they are giving tools, and this can improve the understanding of the companies. But the biggest challenge when we think about nature-based solutions is the model, how companies are used to work, because many years the companies were used to work in a very individual way. They have the metrics, they have their own goals, and they're going to go to achieve their goals, sometimes with bilateral partnerships and consultants. But when you get into this collective actions, you need to change a little bit your mindset, because it's not the result is not connected only to your operations and to your goals, but the goals are to change the water basin. And therefore, you need to be a bit more flexible. Of course, you need to achieve your own goals. That's okay. But sometimes when you think about actions to put close to your company, but sometimes the TNC says, well, we should do this in a region where we have a bigger impact, and this can help to decrease the risk. So I think here we are doing some pioneer work where we focus on the results for the water basin and not for the companies. But of course, the improvement in the water basin, this can bring safety to your own operation. And that's what we are always emphasizing. So you invest less and have a better results. So you can attract partnerships for the future. And this will help to increase the result. So I think this is a challenge to change the mindset, the way of thinking, and then we can make some progress.
So I will stop here, because I believe that Alexander can also piggyback here, considering Brazil. So turning to Alex, how was this understanding the perception of this evolution, of this engagement of the interests, because something caught my attention is that most, when talking about the corporate sector, big companies, even with shares on the stock exchange, they understand the water risk. And this is an important point, but less than half have a plan to deal with this risk. So somehow it shows a little bit the vulnerability, considering that more and more understanding the challenges of climate change with these extremes that are happening more frequently in terms of intensity, not only in Brazil, but how the whole world let it happen here in the north coast of São Paulo, or the drought in the south, and the hurricane that went in Africa, Madagascar, for more than 4 weeks. How has it been, Alex? This evolution in the understanding of the global compact for this engagement of the companies, and what's your opinion about their readiness to be present in this? Yes, I will piggyback what André already said. Only the big companies are better prepared, actually. But what we are seeing is that it depends always on the level of the maturity, the competence on this step of risk management. Not only because a company is big, that it has a good developed risk management or a risk mitigation plan. Very few companies are totally aware of the imminent risk and of the impact on their own operations, especially those companies that do not belong to a food and beverage sector and that have more trend to engage more. Also, what André mentioned is their location. Many companies still want to prepare a project at the backyard on where they have the plant instead of doing something in a collective action for the collective benefit. We see a lot of that. Although the investment of those who work the basin as a whole would be more strategic. So what we have seen in the compact throughout the past years, the companies, they are getting more together, and more companies show interest, wanting to know how they can get engaged, but it's a slow process comparing to the level of water stress, unsafety, and investments needed in this area. And of course, the compact work with commitments. So we have the movements, if we can, I can even detail later on about this. In the movements, the company has to commit to targets that the movements follow. And then some companies or CEOs, they have a certain problem in following in this or committing to such a barrier. And in general, I can say that the interest is increasing, engagement as well, but the companies that need to improve more risk management, and we are seeing this also increase for bigger companies than small and medium companies. So a restaurant, a hotel is as dependent of water supply as a microbrewery, but the microbreweries show a greater trend of engaging in this program. So the trend is positive, but it needs to be more robust. In the Mais Agua movement, today we have 23 companies included and 16 institutions, NGOs, academia, government. So this is the invitation. Please come, join the global compact, come in to see how the Mais Agua movement works and get engaged. Okay, Alex. At the end, we bring this topic again, even to leave the addresses so that everybody can have access. One of the objectives of this panel, in addition to the discussion of the topics around this experience, it's also to give references that can add value and share lessons learned and engagement. So Alex was talking about this movement in terms of engaging the company, being a slow process. So in terms of, or according to Ambev's opinion, there have been many discussions in terms of bringing more companies. So what kind of experiences, perspectives you're getting involved in to make engagement grow? And also I would like to mention not only about the big companies, because as Andrea and Alex mentioned, big companies, they have better conditions, although for me it's also a concerning information that most of these companies that are even listed on stock exchange, how they understand the water risk, they still don't have a plan to deal with this problem. So what experiences, what lessons learned, what is Ambev doing to try to shorten this process that Alex mentioned? Is there anything that we can do to expedite this, even considering that we are in the decade of action? We know that if we are going to wait for this to happen traditionally as it has until now, perhaps we don't have enough time to reach the point. Well, there's a lot to talk about. We understand what is our role as a big company. We have many suppliers, clients in our ecosystem in Brazil. It is quite robust, and we have trying to work with it from end to end. So one of the initiatives that we are joining is the CDP for water, and we invite our main suppliers, actually we invite all of them to join us, and we do a very close follow-up. Another point that we have is that we have positive agendas, always with the areas of sustainability of these other companies. Many times they come to us as benchmarking, and in all opportunities, we talk about our strategies. We disclose what we are doing, encouraging more companies to follow us. Recently, we introduced a commitment, the commitment for the climate action, where we wanted to engage our partners in a commitment that is called Connecting to a Better World. This is a commitment that tries to bring all those people that subscribe, that they provide some report on the gas emissions in terms of greenhouse gas effects, and they establish targets and that promote actions for the reduction of emissions concretely. And we registered more than 200 suppliers that have subscribed, and this covers 70% of our scope 3. Through actions like this, we believe very much that we have this duty of involving our suppliers. So in these actions also, we have bringing much of this result of the water project that we have here in the region of São Paulo, trying to engage more partners in this initiative. Recently, I'm not going to mention which was, but we have a partner that joined us, and he is co-investing with us in these regions. They belong to our chain, and also they wanted to find initiatives to reduce emissions and to restore the water basin. We provided the bridge, and this is a daily activity work Samuel knows very well, and Henrique also is our partner in the municipalities in São Paulo, where we try to make arrangements and combinations so that each and every company finds financing lines to provide scale and complement their actions. One of the major difficulties is to reach scale. So here I can leave an invitation. So I believe that when we put together our efforts, each one complements with what is important to their company, but also in a collective action. We can reach a better result if we only invested on a sheer action of an area recovery. Today with this work, only here in the region of São Paulo, we count more or less with 500 hectares restored because of a collective action. So it's not only one alone that did this recovery, but also investing in this agenda. I believe that is it, Samuel. I've answered your question, I believe. Yes, Mariana. Thank you. So now talking a little bit, you started talking about this point of lessons learned in terms of doing collectively. Also, Andrea mentioned about that, Alexander as well, to abandon individualism and go to a collective action. We know that alone we won't be able to solve such a complex action because we're talking about many factors like the unordained growth of the cities, just like in the rural area, in the peri-urban area too. So I would like to turn the floor back to André so that he could tell us about these other lessons that this initiative started by São Paulo bring. What are the differences that we can see that make of this process not something new? We are not trying to invent the wheel, but what have you seen in the times of progress? What lessons can we share with those who are attending this event? Things that worked, things that are working, but other things that need adjustment as well. Well, Samuel, I believe that today this is a work that is being done. And when we selected to work with CNC as a partner for São Paulo, it was a very easy choice because it's a plan of huge success. And the success is exactly not only on collecting multiple companies, but to obtain critical supports from municipalities, also sanitation companies, because as a last resort, we have used this project as a model to talk about another project that is still in its beginning, but we find it in other parts of the world because we see that, of course, that it is super important to have the participation of more companies, but they alone won't be able to finance all the changes needed. It's an action needing multiple agents. But also, we understand that, well, let's wait. This is a problem of the public government, of the sanitation company. They have to solve. And in this, they have to solve. Nothing happens. So, and where do the companies have a role? And this is what we find super interesting. We got together a group of companies, and then we started a pilot. We started a pilot that shows that nature-based solutions bring results. And with all these initial base that the companies helped us to develop, you can sit and talk with development banks, sanitation companies, municipalities, bring them to the table and say, look, we understand what you're trying to do. Now perhaps we can join and help to complement all this. And I believe that a great success that you had in negotiating this point of having a part of the water bill directed to investing in the water basin. It's something very important because bottom line, it generates sustainability to the project. So what started with only the company investing, then the company plus to each real invested, you get other alternatives, 1 to 7. So it's a major success here that encourages other initiatives and bring more people to be engaged. And like this, you get a multiplier, which is something critical because it decreases your dependency on the companies and you have more success than just an initial movement that can be multiplied. And today you can have a structure that generates a greater impact over the basin. And this is what we are saying. If this had happened in São Paulo, if the companies had promoted a bilateral action, it would have been much more difficult to gain scale. to convince, for instance, a municipality to join. So then the impact is small. It seems something that, no, I'm just solving a problem of mine. But when you transform this into an action that you see that you're going to resolve a collective problem and you gain scale, it's easier to negotiate and add value. In the last instances, this is what we're looking for. But it's not only the companies, they will always be essential parts in that first movement in making things happen together with the NGOs. After you create this movement, it's easier to add, and adding, we will have the capacity of delivering a significant thing. And at the end, everybody gain with a more stable basin. So this is our vision, and the way how it was developed is something for those who don't know. The WRC has a target of having a positive impact on 100 water basins. So several projects worldwide, and good examples as of São Paulo always helps us to share this experience with other places.
Thank you, André. So my role today is a moderator, but of course, I would like to add some elements, and I think one of them would be the strategic partnerships. We work together, so the work of the compact and the work of the city administration, this is the more vulnerable link of the whole chain. And here we have still some challenges with the legislation that can give some obstacles, and then sometimes we have some problems that, and the city cannot have the benefits like jobs and development. But we have some promising states that are capable of scaling up, and they have the ability to leverage. And we have this leverage effect for all stakeholders, and this is a way to solve this complex topic. But I think the strategic partnerships are very important, and one with the government of state of São Paulo, since the coordinator Helena says that's a Tinder of environment, because she connects institutions that need to be to do the compensation with the areas that are already mapped, and they have a huge potential for conservation, to improve quality, diversity, to protect the soil and others. So I would like to come back to Alexander. He talked about the challenges and the commitments for the members in this Mais Água movement. Can you explain this a little bit? Because you have very ambitious goals, and we had at the meeting, the reduction 2030. This was very interesting. So what challenges do you see, so then to have these commitments from the members? Yes, thank you. Before I answer the question, I just would like to comment on what André talked about, the collective topics, and we agree. This is really the right way. We need to put all the stakeholders together, but it's on the other side, a huge challenge, and this is communication. Because when we have a lot of stakeholders in one project, so when we have just one NGO and one company, we have a lot of negotiation. But when we have a lot of stakeholders with the water basin, with the councils, when we have 30 or 40 institutions, you need a huge structure and a team structure. And this is really important. And this project needs a dedicated team for communication. And it's important to think about all this when you're going to create a structure. About your question, the compact in the beginning, March 7th, had this event, Ambition 2030. This is our huge line. All our movements are on different areas: climate, human rights, anti-corruption. So we have this huge movement, the Ambition 2030. This was a very nice event, more than 14,000 people listening online. And it was very focused on the environmental topics. We had a lot of environmental topics, agro-business, net zero, water. And in the end, this was very interesting because we had the co-production of Pacto and our organization, and of course, focused on the environmental area. But we have also the movement Mais Água, More Water. This is a very interesting movement. This was launched April last year when we had this huge initiative, Ambition 2030. And this movement has 3 goals, and these goals are ambitious and highly motivating. So 99% of people having access to water, safe water in 2023, 90% of the water treated up to 2033. And the last point, 50% of deforestation on critical areas stopped. So you see that the first 2 goals are focused on the water, and the last one is on restoration. So if a company wants to participate, does not need to follow the 3 goals. Only 1 or 2 would be enough, and we have a voluntary initiative. So we have the possibility to start a project. When we see that we have the movement that is not special for a sector, and when our project is excluding a sector, then we can change it, and we are flexible, and then we can find more companies committed to our goals. We have 23 companies, and the tendency is growing. 2030 is our first goal, but we're not going to stop there. This would be the first phase. And of course, then we are going to continue with a broader project. Yes, thank you, Alex. You talked about the restoration as one of these goals, and I would like to talk about this, about the conservation, the restoration, and I would like to understand how this topic has been discussed in your company. What are the challenges? What are the challenges for nature-based solutions, and to consider them as an important factor to water security? Almost 40% of the answers to climate change need water-based, nature-based solutions, as the reforestation. So we can have a whole production chain, and we can recover our degraded water basins. We have a study from more than 4,000 middle-sized and big cities. 40% have their water sources in degradation states. So this will also give opportunity to investments and to have more ecosystem services. But of course, sometimes we are unsure what this can give. So how can you see the challenges when we look at the companies? So most of the actions in Brazil and worldwide are focused on gray infrastructure. So to bring water from one basin to the other. That's, of course, this is also important, but it's not enough. And what challenges can you identify about nature-based solutions so that this can be the center of investments, not only for the companies, but also other sectors? Would you like to start, Diana? Yes, start you. You can start, André. Yes, I think we have some topics. It's improving. But one of the difficulties is a traditional way to evaluate projects. So if I invest some millions in nature-based solutions, how much water I can get out of it? So these numbers sometimes are very difficult to be analyzed, but we see that these models are being improved. We already have some methodologies to improve, to do the math. And we have also a lot of discussions about the benefits, because in the beginning it was very individual, so some small projects. But when we have a big project, you're addressing a lot of things at the same time. And when you are able to get all the added value in the project, it's easier to get to see the benefits of the project. You can say, well, we do this with focus on water, but perhaps we can get the climate guys to help us financing this because we have the carbon credits. So you can just see mechanisms that would improve the dialogue. And I think it's, as Alex said, this is very important. That's a communication. How can you sell this to your people? Sometimes they don't speak the same language. And of course, the organization has a goal to protect the nature, but the guys from sustainability, they have an intermediate role. They need to translate this internally. But when you need the approval of the companies, of a vice presidency of the board, then they have no idea, then they don't share the same thinking. So you need to translate for them what these projects represent. You just need to put this in the language of a decision maker so they can understand that these are important projects. So I think this is important, and we need to see how can we translate all this to show people the benefits and the decisions they have to make. So these are the important topics. So to maximize the benefits, and on the other hand, to talk in their own language. And when I say talk in their own language, it's also how can we calculate the benefits? How can we put this in figures? And sometimes companies also need to be more flexible. So these are not the same figures as if you're doing investment in a building. It's not the same because nature is more volatile, and you need some time to get a response, and they need to understand this. So it's important to break paradigms. And Yes, that's perfect, André. And Mariana, what do you think?
That Andre was very accurate. I just wanted to add that because of the pandemic, so this brought us a highlight. It showed this connection with nature and how many times we are uh, unbalanced. It helped us to open this dialogue for others, not only those in the area, but those who have some facility understanding this, and also all this movement with the charter to the investors, with the ESG issue that also happen our work in making this bridge that convey this information to the top management of the company. So these two movements that happened recently, they brought a good opportunity for engagement. Another point which is essential is the bring the engagement of the top management to go talk to the farmer who is also being benefited, uh, uh, convince them of the importance and all these experiences they can awaken for the importance of nature. And many times we face this difficulty of quantifying this benefit. We place a lot of efforts on this. We work on this agenda strongly, but going beyond figures, we need to bring this experience, visual, sensorial, and this helps a lot to bring the top management to our site, to our agenda. Yes, Maria, and I also would like to thank Maria Eduarda Cunha that says that a company in where she works is engaged. And there is another point for you, Marianne, perhaps you can answer in private. What are the initiatives performed in the company in Lages in Santa Catarina that belongs to the Canoas River Basin, but also the Uruguay and Prata River Basin? Alex, to you, this point of the timing, because these initiatives cannot bring results overnight, we know. And what's your opinion about these solutions that are nature-based, and not in terms not only of the movement, Mais Águas, but in a general point of view? Well, the results, especially in nature-based solution, probably are not always in the same measure, in the same time the investor is expecting. But going back to this point, the best reservoir is a standing forest. It's not enough, either in São Paulo or other regions, to stop deforestation. We have to restore the areas, and this is totally necessary. Not only necessary, but mandatory according to the Paris Agreement and even the commitment signed by Brazil of recovering 12 million hectares until 2030. So it's more than a duty. The time is nature's time, and also the time where we can get organized internally with these arrangements with many institutions like the ones that we see in São Paulo. Many companies working there. And once again, communication is essential, and more people, more institutions becoming aware and convinced that this is the right path with collective actions and restoration, the greater the level of acceptance of timing, taking a little more time. We are working with a vision of 2030, but these actions will continue throughout our lives. Yes, Alex. Now we are coming to our final stretch in this discussion. We mentioned this initiative in the point of view of the collective action of integration of efforts, the different agents, with a greater focus on the corporate sector. but reminding the participation of the public power, the civil society around common objectives, integrating instruments of public policies, the public policies themselves, prioritizing resources, a communication flowing better to translate this complexity in a way that can engage more people. So I would like to thank the participation both of Andrea Ramalho, coordinator of the Water Resilience Coalition, Mariana Apple, manager of sustainability of Ambev Latin America, Alexander Ho, senior the manager of Global Compact, and ask you for your final words. Andrea, in addition to thanking all the great partners that we have today that help us to perform this project, to invite you all to access the link. I believe it is going to be shared if it hasn't been yet. Called World Collection out to you. Know about it. We are introducing tomorrow a public charter with a global compact showing our commitment, corporate commitment, because different from other conferences in climate and biodiversity, this conference doesn't have a target and an agreement at the end, but we created this agreement, this covenant to commit with operational resilience and to mitigate impacts on the basins, among which the basin of São Paulo, you can see in the link, and you will find it live now. But I would like to invite you to read the document, get acquainted with it. It's a way of engaging with a public commitment that's very interesting, to be present together with Global Compact, to know about the initiatives in Brazil, the case of São Paulo. And it is important. We need leaderships. We need all the sectors, no matter the size. Everybody can contribute in a collective action. And like this, we can change a little bit the scenario in our basins. Once again, thank you very much. So thank you, Andre. Alex? I also would like to thank very much for the invitation. It was excellent. I thank the team of communication of TNC for holding up this event. And my final message includes the Global Compact. It is called Global Compact because it's a network. It's something global. And Carlos was here in the beginning, our CEO, but we are present in 160 countries. And we have a network with a capacity of leveraging that is very big. And I follow this direction of the Mais Água movement, and that is promoting collective actions in water basins aligned with a movement introduced in New York by the CEO Rosamund, which is our Global Compact for Water. And this is something very important, that we are aligning activities with international organizations. And target 3 is for those companies already committed with actions of reforestation or basin recovery. So these are companies with projects, initiatives, and programs that are directed out-house, not only in-house, to mitigate the political impact of water. And we just introduced a global movement to help more critical water basins. There is a company located in the US and in Europe through this initiative, and they can invest, for instance, in different funds. So this is an advantage that is very big that these organizations have, just like TNC, so working with critical basins. So I stop here, and I thank you once again. Oh, thank you, Alex. Mariana, please. Well, I also would like to thank for everything that we have discussed, and I would like to say that Ambev is here together with the Brazilian society. We want to support It makes no sense if a company grows without the environment and the ecosystem. So we are here to celebrate all the successes in the country and development. And I would like to say that currently we are also here in our program, which is an accelerator. It's called Acelerador Sem Mais, to accelerate startups that help to deal with the challenges of sustainability for Ambev. It was created so that we can address all the 5 targets of sustainability, one of which is water. And we are finding startups with very good solutions that we are supporting. Last year we had a good start up, and to this year we're analyzing one that brings a system of membranes of biofilms for river treatment. And I would like to invite you, the startups that are hearing us, to enroll in our programs of acceleration so that we can work together. And Ambev is a company that is always ready to face challenges from society. And some time ago, we were provoked by the Unisocial business to have a social business. And it was the first Brazilian company, a big company, to have a social business, which is our Agua Ama. Agua Ama is a mineral water that you can find in our market in bottles and cans, and all the profit with the sales is for providing water for those who don't have. 35 million Brazilians suffer of water scarcity, and we propose to supply waters at least for 1 million Brazilians until 2025. And this is an action that is in the movement Mais Água with a global compact that Alexander mentioned. They have the target of the basins, of reducing water use, but also this target of promoting sanitation and access to water. And so we leave this invitation to come together with this movement and the actions for the Water Resilience Coalition, and also to help the 100 basins around the world. Thank you very much. All my gratitude for being able to be here sharing this with you. Thank you, Mariana. We are arriving at our last minutes. I would like to thank everybody that attended this meeting in YouTube, and there you will find the links that have been mentioned here. And also, I would like to make an invitation for the introduction that we are going to do on the 23rd of a very important study called Invisible Reservoir, that shows the relationship between water and forest through analysis, water analysis that are very detailed, and economic analysis, and also the point of nature-based solutions as a pillar for water security. And even the paper that was published in the scientific magazine that also show the evidence and trust on this kind of approach and work. I would like to make this invitation. It's going to be made available on the YouTube channel, the date and the hour, and you can also follow it virtually with translation from English into Portuguese. So it's a pleasure to be able to be all with you here, our panelists, Andrea, Alex, Mariana, and remember this opportunity of discussing such an important topic in the second conference of water of the United Nations. Remembering the first one took place in 1977, a different world. The Berlin Wall was still standing, so challenges changed a lot, and the result of an effort that is integrated, collective, or with a common objectives, creating synergies and impact so that we can gain scale. Tomorrow we will commemorate the World Water Day, so it was a major privilege to be able to share some reflections with all of you, and even with other challenges associated, like access of water. Billions of people don't have access to water in the world. More than 35 million people have not access to drinking water in Brazil. More than half of the inhabitants do not have treated water or sewage treatment, and in the world, half of the population. So a lot of injustices making more vulnerable, those who are in the world because of climate change. Other views, other opinions in terms of equity that have to be tackled in this agenda. So I would like to thank you all once again and commemorate and celebrate this moment of a protection of a resource that is essential for the life on Earth, which is water.